Hello, folks. Thank you for coming today for the showcase. Showcase today is with special guest Greg Sands. And want to make sure everybody can hear me out there before we go much farther. And what we're going to want you to do today is raise your hand. We've got too many people signed up, so we can only open up 10 people to the, the unmuted portion. So just want to make sure everybody can hear me. I'm going to click on a couple of folks here to make sure they can and see if that's going to work for us today. So I'm going to click on a few here. And Tim, can you hear us okay?
I can. You're fine.
All right. Jack Heilman, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. A couple more I want to test here a little bit. Mike Veenstra, can you hear us? Not getting any response here. Let's make sure this is going to be functioning. Bill Broussard, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I guess everybody else can too. Nobody's putting their hand up here. So we're going to all be on mute today unless you have a question. And on your screen, you can push the button, raise your hand, or get our attention in that area. So just raise your hand. I'll unmute you and let you ask a question of Greg or myself or either Tim. They're all here today. So hopefully this will rock along okay, and technology will be kind to us today. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So we are open and ready to go. Welcome to Showcase number 60. This is series number 11. We've been doing these now since August of 2007. We have quite a few different sponsors. Want to go over those sponsors that make this show available to you for free, that's free. ASA is an organization that we belong to. We highly recommend it. They are a sponsor for this particular showcase for everyone that we've done. So if you're not an ASA member, go to asashop.org. Check that out. And by the way, tell them you saw it on Showcase. That would be great. Number 3 is a free tools offer we have on our website. Be sure and go to turnaroundtour.com, click in there, and on the blue bar across the top of the website, click that free payoff tools and take advantage of those pieces that we do in the industry for free. So this is our ASA sponsored benefit provider. We are the Auto Shop Lifeline Company, and that Lifeline program is $44 per month. Yes, that's $44 a month for ASA members. Please click on that, sign up for that $44 program, and everything will work a whole lot better in your business if you will. Today we have a special program here with mailbox marketing. We have Mudlick as part of our sponsoring partners as well. We have a company called Send Out Cards. This is Tim. He's here with us right now. Tim, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody. Glad to have you on the call. Look forward to it.
All right, great. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you being here. If there's any particular questions, may direct them towards you. If you go to our website, the Payoff Tools website, you can see this Car Care Aware Forecast program that's absolutely there for you. If you're looking for a software system, Pace Software is out of, they specialize in multi-shop operations. They're out of Florida. Be sure and get a hold of Pace for looking. Also, Moving Targets, some new move-ins coming to your area. Jay at Moving Targets is a great company to do that with. We've got a customer link program. If you want somebody to mine your database, send out reminders. Customer link is that company. Be sure and contact them. Also, Zed Daniels has been around this business a long time. He has Card Company out of Houston. Then also we have a company out of California called Quick Track. Cecil will be with us for the next two the next two showcase events. And those are the advertising sponsors for today. Be sure and click on them and tell them where you saw it. Here's some bragging going on here. Since Showcase started, we have a library, a Showcase library, where we house the audio and video files. There's been 2,583 hits to that library. You can see the page loads are massive. We've had 741 different shop owners click in and listen to the Showcase Live event. Thank you very much for that. Let me get back up here where I need to be, and want to introduce our special guest for today. And maybe he needs an introduction, maybe he doesn't. But his name is Greg Sands. And Greg, I want to thank you for saying yes again to Showcase. You were here once before. We talked about budget last month, and we're here to talk about daily operations and what do you do to make your business successful. But first I want to Say, Greg, welcome. Is your voice okay? You working okay there?
Everything's fine. I'm glad to be here, Gary. Thanks for inviting me on.
All right. And, you know, there's always an interesting question about guests I have, and you know, what made Greg Sands choose the auto repair industry? What made you choose this industry many years ago?
Well, it's an interesting story. I was in the restaurant business, TGI Fridays, and I was looking for a business to get into that was more of a non-glamorous business. And I had looked into several different things, not automotive at all. And I had my car repaired at a Goodyear store, and I remember they took me to work in a dump truck, and I remember thinking that would be a great business. But what really hit it home, as luck would have it, is that I was recruited from a guy out of Austin for Todd Hayes, who was a guy who had some stores in Houston. And I met with Todd and his brother-in-law, Rick Davis. And they were, you know, after meeting with him several times, I came in as a partner with Todd to help grow his business. And it was just a great, very, very good opportunity for me. The whole process was just an awesome deal. Todd was an outstanding owner for me. He allowed me to come in and run his company and grow it, eventually bought Todd out, and you know, continue to stay in the automotive business and grow several different businesses over the last 18 years. I've just been very blessed to meet a lot of great people along the way, and I brought in a lot of people that I knew in the restaurant business, in the automotive business. Today, and I think most people, well, I can't say most people would agree, but several people would agree that this is the perfect business to be in, especially with the economy in the state it is. If you didn't buy into that, our business is in the perfect position. So that's kind of the short story.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of places they can go to read about your background, about what you got where you are today. There's the website, mudlickmail.com. You can read about the process for Mudlick. You can go to wefixeverything.com, driversautorepair.com, servicestreet.com. We're not going to sit here and talk about these things, Greg, because we're here to talk about the specifics of what makes that business successful. So let's just jump right in here. And the question I'd like to ask you is, what would the 5 key elements, if you were sitting down with a bunch of shop owners, you were sitting at a table and y'all were sitting there eating some lunch, and they said, Greg, what are the 5 things that make your business successful on a day-to-day operation for you know, not in the accounting world, not in the other world, but what would make it successful at shop level?
Well, I think the number one thing, when you're talking about sales, and that's specifically what we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
You know, learning to say yes to customers is probably the number one thing. You know, and it's shocking to me. Most people would ignore that, or they'll say, "Hey, I say yes to customers." I can tell you, I travel shops all the time. I was in a shop yesterday, and it happened to be my own shop, and the manager wasn't saying no, but he wasn't saying yes. That to me is a no. If you can imagine, and this is the best example I can give, and I'm a little bit long-winded, but all this is so important. Imagine you go into a 5-star hotel, and you know, you walk up to the front counter and you're 30 minutes early, and you say, "Hey, I'd like to check in early." Well, what makes a 5-star hotel different from a 1-star hotel is that they know how to say yes, sir, and make it happen. So they don't go, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, your room isn't clean yet. The cleaning lady didn't show up. The housekeeper didn't show up." They don't give you problems. They just say, "Yes, sir." They'll find a way, even though they have all those problems in the back. That's what I see in our business, is that the fastest way to increase sales is you take your customers' problems away. When they walk in, they say, "Hey, can you guys do an oil change for me?" You don't go, "Oh no, we're blown out till Tuesday." Well, you just lost that customer. They're going to go somewhere else. And the problem with that, think about this. You say no, because it's very common in our industry, and that's a lot of my success. You say no to a customer on an oil change, and a customer doesn't know that an oil change is just a pain in the you-know-what. They just figure, well, golly, they can't even do an oil change down there. Now the neighbor asks them, hey, where would you go to get your car fixed? And you go, well, I sure wouldn't go to Bob's Automotive. They can't even do an oil change. You know, they'll think a brake job's harder. So it's, you know, saying yes is critical. The other thing is, you know, the staffing. You know, a lot of people want to do sales, but they staff for the volume that they're doing. You know, if you're, I don't know how many shop owners I've talked to that the guy running the front counter is also the same guy that is the technician. They have a, you know, an on-hold tape or something because they can't answer the phone. So staffing to increase sales is just mission critical. And as far as the purely the sales side is knowing how to break down the sales. The big deal that I have seen today is that people are waiting for broke cars to come in. If you talk to people on this line, you know, it's very easy to sell a broke car. Understanding how to turn an oil change into a maintenance customer, something beyond knowing how to upsell oil changes, state inspections, emissions tests. I mean, that's the wave of the future. It's not fun, but it is what it is that, you know, we all have to deal with that. You know, training, you know, teaching your managers at the front counter. We talked about saying yes. There's so many parts to that. Even when you talk about yes, it's not just at the front counter. It's phone skills. So I don't tell people, I don't try to go out and say, hey, you have to answer the phone my way. But what I do tell people is you should have something that says yes to the customer. If a customer wants to come in, if they're saying, hey, I want to come in for service, you know, the answer should be absolutely, or whatever you want to say hey, yes, bring your car in. So the other key, and I hate to say it, but it is just part of it, is consistently good advertising. You know, if you don't, there's a real balance. And, you know, obviously I'm in the direct mail business because I believe it's the best method of getting the customers into your door for several reasons. You know, you can pick the customers you want, but good, consistent advertising is, I mean, one of the biggest secrets. Now, if you think about it, if you have consistent advertising and you train your staff properly and you have enough staff and they're saying yes, they know how to handle oil changes, you know how, there's a lot of other things that go into that, but these are what I would call the top 5. But I could add to that list.
Well, I was trying to hold you to 5 because, you know, we could pay it alliteration of 25 key elements here. Yeah. But if someone's going to have a takeaway from this conversation today that they can implement into their business today, this afternoon, the next phone call, or the next thinking. Now, when you're talking about the proper staffing and the proper training for that staff, how critical are those guys on the front counter selling the customers?
Well, you know,
what skills do they have to have? What do they have to be able to do?
I think the biggest thing with people, it isn't necessarily technical skills, meaning they don't need to know everything about a car. It's that speed of service that is just so critical, and that would have been one of the things I included in here, is that, you know, it's almost impossible to teach this. You know, when I walk into a store and I see somebody sitting in a waiting room, the first thing I ask the manager on duty or the owner or whoever is, how long has that guy been in the waiting room? What's he here for? You can find out a lot about somebody. If they're indifferent, you know, let me tell you, it will kill your business. You know, you might think that customer's been in there 5 minutes. They've been in there 25 minutes, 30 minutes, or 40 minutes, and their car hasn't even been touched. Well, what's your chances of selling that job? You know, and most good salespeople know the quicker I get back to that customer, the faster. So if you look at, we have a deal, we call it a 10-10-10 rule, and we're actually working on a little different rule right now that will that will go beyond this that we're testing that I think is pretty neat. What the speed of service, what we talk about with the 10-10-10 rule is when a customer comes in for an oil change, we teach our people. We have coupons, and everything that we do kind of ties together. So when somebody brings one of our direct mail pieces to us, and they want to use our Get Acquainted offer, which is an oil change and inspection, how we present that with the customer is when we get the coupon from them, we say, ma'am or sir, that is a great coupon offer. And let me tell you how this works. You know, this coupon is for an oil change. We do the 21-point inspection and a tire rotation. Now what we'll do is we'll do the inspection first. That takes about 10 minutes. Then we'll do the tire rotation, which takes about 10 minutes. And then we'll do the oil change, which is about 10 minutes. So overall, it'll take about 30 minutes, could go as long as 40 minutes. Now we'll do the inspection first. And if we see something, if we notice a concern, we'll come get you at that point and show you. And the reason why we do it like that is that if you find a problem, if you find a safety concern or an issue that needs to be addressed, we take the customer out to the car and we show the customer that concern at that point. If a customer decides that they want to buy that concern, now you've just bought yourself time. So the 10-10-10 rule goes away. So just going into a little bit more detail for the clients out there.
Now, we want the detail, Greg.
Okay.
That's what we're looking for.
All right. So just to explain how it works. When a customer comes in, I just walked you through what we say to the customer. Now let's say that you go out, the technician, you tell the technician, look, find me one safety concern, or one, if it's not a safety concern, you know, the most important maintenance issue that they need. And so the technician may come back and say, hey, let me show you this drive belt, serpentine belt's all cracked up, you know, it needs to be replaced. Here's what we do. We don't write up an estimate. We don't, you know, write up this huge list of stuff. We go into the customer waiting room and we grab that customer. Miss Johnson, do you have a second? I want to show you something on your vehicle. We walk her out to the vehicle. We show her the serpentine belt. We show her where it's cracked or it's frayed and it needs to be replaced. We say, you know, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Now here's the key to sales. All you do once you show her and she sees it, you wait for the magic words. And those magic words is, well, how much is that? At that point, you got to sell. You tell the customer, oh, you know what? I haven't even priced it out. I wanted to make you aware of that. I'll go ahead and shop around for the best price. Go ahead and have a seat in the waiting room, and I'll get back with you as soon as I get that price together. Now that just bought us time. We know that the customer is going to buy that item. Now, if a customer says, oh, I don't care about that, I don't want to do that, we know that the customer is not a buyer, which means we'll still look over their vehicle, we'll still document the items that the car needs, but we're not going to spend an enormous amount of time writing up this huge estimate and pricing out stuff when we know that person's not a buyer. And I think that's where a lot of people get a little off on these oil changes. The other thing, because that's a simple sale, is that you have to think of selling oil changes as like a batting average. You know, if you hit 3 out of 10, you're doing great. The other 7, they may even say how much, and then they don't want to do it today, or there's other obstacles, and they don't, you know, they just won't do it, but they'll bring it back. We've noticed that a great deal of customers will come back within the next 2 weeks. That just, hey, I don't want to ride home. I'm heading out. I don't have time. A lot of those are just maintenance issues, where you know it's not mission critical that they just do it today. And if it's not mission critical or they don't have to do it today, we don't tell them that they have to do it today. We take that pressure off of them because we want the customer to come back.
So, Greg, if we can back up just a minute here. I think some key elements here that what you're doing is you're running that trial balloon up to see if they are a buying client.
Right.
You know, you're testing the waters. You hadn't priced anything. You're just showing and telling at that point, and then you decide what you're going to do from there, right?
Correct. You're not going to put an enormous amount of time into that vehicle if you know that the customer is not interested And the key to this, there's a couple of things. We don't want to upset that customer. So, in years past, we've tried it where we'd write up a laundry list. You hit that customer with a, $800 sale or a $1,000 sale. Well, now you've got a customer who came in for an oil change, and they're like, oh, my God, these guys tried to, kill me with a big estimate. And
right.
So over the years, we've just learned to really, this is about the softest way to approach it, and it actually gets us our best return because more customers say yes, and they don't feel like, because we don't have an estimate already and saying, you got to buy today, because we've softened that, that customers don't feel like, hey, I got ambushed with a cheap oil change. And so we take that, and that's another reason why the direct mail is a little better than what I'd say marriage mail is or yellow pages, because you can get more of an upscale client. One thing we don't do is we don't do $9.95 oil changes. We do $19.95 oil changes. And the reason for that is to get a little better customer. We know we're a little bit higher than the average Firestone and Goodyear in our oil change price, and it just tends to bring in a better customer. So now, I don't know, several people on here may know about the 5-packs that I do, but this is it's just so good. And I would recommend anybody getting with Tim and asking how to do this, because what we do is if a customer comes in, there's 2 ways to approach this. If a customer comes in, let's say they don't really need, their car has 15,000 miles on it, and there's not a lot that they need, and what few things they need, if it's windshield wiper blades or tire rotation and balance, they buy everything. Well, then we still suggest that, hey, we've got this great deal on a 5-pack, which is 5 oil changes for $89.95. And if you take advantage of this 5-pack offer today, we'll give you the first oil change and inspection for free. This 5-pack can be used on any vehicle that you have, any of your other vehicles. It is for 5 quarts of oil, so it's for up to 5 quarts of motor oil. And you take advantage of that today. A huge number of our customers, we sell hundreds of these in a month. We have 2 that we offer. One is a 5-pack for regular oil changes, and one is our Platinum 5-pack, which is for synthetic, which is obviously much more expensive. The benefit of the 5-pack, most of you that really understand your P&Ls, you would understand that you're only paying for the 1 oil change today, but they're paying you $89.95. The average customer will use about 3 oil changes, and they either lose it, they move away, they forget about it, whatever. It's about, on average, about 3. But what it impacts to your bottom line is incredible. Plus, the ones that will stay with you, and you want them to use all of them, they're locked in for 5 quarters. They're coming to you. Even if you make a mistake or you mess up, they're still coming back to you. You have a chance to win them back over, which is just critical in our business. So a lot of positives on the 5-packs.
Okay, so you mentioned a minute ago if someone is interested, they can get a hold of Tim, and he can explain the program to them.
Yes.
On the 5-pack. Okay.
Tim probably does a better job of it than I do. But it's a great program. We sell literally hundreds of them, and it's amazing. In 18 stores, it's several $100,000 in profits a year that
wow.
You just would have never got. It is for a single store. For a lot of shops, it could probably, if you're I don't want to embellish, but I would tell you it will dramatically increase your bottom line if you're good at this. And the great thing is man, you've locked in that customer. You don't have to worry about anyone else stealing that customer. They're coming back to you. And as most of you know, the more they come back to you, the more they trust you.
Perfect.
Are you still there? Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I heard a click.
No, I hope not. I hope we're still around.
We're still here, okay.
Yeah. But let's jump back to this original screen here. We talked about and the other day, Tim and I were talking, and we were talking about 2 different pathways. Say a customer comes in the door for an oil change, and they're coming in with one of those oil change coupons that you advertise. The other person might come in because their air conditioner's not blowing cold air, their brakes are making a noise. They're kind of a broke customer. They've got a broken car. Are there two distinct pathways to how you handle those customers?
Well, not really. I mean, obviously, a broke car is, the way we do it is we rotate them in the back, oil changes versus broke car. But in the broke car, it's not so much that we don't handle them different at the front counter. In the back, the way that we write up the estimate to prepare it for selling, we sell in systems, which means if somebody comes in and they have an air conditioning problem, then we're going to focus on their air conditioning problem. But what I've seen with shop owners, probably everybody on this call today, is pretty darn good at selling a broke car. It's amazing how the market has changed. I've watched a number of people, and they're actually pretty decent at it. The problem is all those extra cars that come in. They're not getting residual dollars off of those.
Okay.
So we do sell in systems, which you guys have probably heard before, and again, it comes back to that speed of service. We know if you drop off a broke car, if we get back in touch with that customer within an hour, we're selling that job.
Okay.
If you don't get back to that customer until the afternoon, your chances of selling that car went way down because now the customer's worried that you're not going to get it finished today, and they need their car for tomorrow. So it still comes back to those same rules, which is speed of service. And if you hit those few things, which is just say yes to customers and then move your hind end, work fast to take care of that customer, your sales are going to go through the roof.
So we probably need more than 5 here, don't we?
Well, we could put a stack of them up.
But it sounds like speed of service is really mission critical.
It is.
Yeah. That is for sure. So now, now I know you do some PMIs on your vehicles. I know you do that type of service. So when would you do the PMI, and maybe when wouldn't you do the PMI? Is there any particular situation?
Well, we only do a PMI if the customer, one, approves the original purchase. So if, let's say that a customer comes in for air conditioning work, and they say, nope, don't want to buy it, it needs a compressor or whatever, I don't want to buy it. Well, there's no value in doing an additional, preventive maintenance inspection. If the customer buys the air conditioning work, then we ask permission, and how we ask permission is we tell them that while the part's on the way, I'm going to go ahead and have my technician, John, fully inspect your vehicle, and if there's any other concerns, I will give you a call. That gives us permission to look at the vehicle and check it out for any other concerns. And you've always got to weigh that, with common sense of, the age of the vehicle and the amount of, there are certain items that you might not replace based on the age of the vehicle. It wouldn't make, it's not a good investment. But, obviously any safety issues or, maintenance issues, you're going to want to take care of.
So I've heard in the past, oh, Greg runs those stores and it's high pressure deal and they sell everybody and they don't care. I've heard that rumor out there in the industry.
Well, and that rumor was true. I did that for years in the 90s. I wouldn't deny that. I was probably one of the, that's the way I was trained too. That's the way it was trained from the time I walked in back in the early 90s, and we just got really good at that. There is a major change that's happened over the last 10 years in this automotive business where that doesn't make the best sense today.
Greg, your voice is getting a little more faint here. Hopefully everybody can hear us.
I hope my voice doesn't give out. But,
right.
I wouldn't deny that. I think over the last, 18 years that I've been in the business, back in the 90s, that was the way we really thought, hey, that you got to get them to buy today or they're not coming back. And you just beat the heck out of them to get the money out of them. And that's really not what I would call the best approach today. And I would hope that I evolved over those years. But yeah, I've done my share of selling hard, and I wouldn't deny that. But I would tell you today that's just not the way. And for the last several years, and over those last several years, I've been able to blow away the numbers that we ever did in the 90s. Much more profitable, much easier sales, and much less turnover. I think when you look at the pressure, when you have a high pressure environment, you tend to have very high turnover.
Mm-hmm.
My average manager in Atlanta has been here over 5 years. And so we don't try to put the pressure on them, and it can also cause other issues. So if you do it right, we've substituted high pressure for speed of service.
Okay.
And it seems to work a little better. And it's a lot easier to sell a $200 job than a $1,200 job. And so we've cut back. We've learned from our mistakes. Even though our mistakes were highly profitable, we've just evolved over the years.
Okay. All right. A couple of other things here I think that are important, and we were talking the other day, and we were holding this training class, and when does that sale actually start in your mind's eye with what you're doing?
Well, it starts at the moment somebody gets an impression of your business. It can start with a direct mail piece. It can start by driving by your location. It can start by somebody making a recommendation. But let's just assume that somebody pulls up to your shop, and this is sometimes a big disconnect, is that you make somebody a beautiful ad, or they market their business, and it looks great. And then when they pull up to the store, the place is in shambles. And so the customer, sometimes they can go, wow, look at this great marketing piece. The marketing piece doesn't line up with what they see at the front store. So when a customer pulls up to your store, it's got to reflect what your marketing piece looks like or what it says. Another thing that really hits in the industry, and it's in different industries too, but ours especially, is that we tend to lose sight of our customers. If you're in a high-end neighborhood and you've got people that have tattoos all over them, visible tattoos, or they've got hair, real long hair, their clothes are untucked, or they got jeans with holes in them, or they don't shave, which drives me crazy. That's an image that you're putting out to the customer, is that what you're saying is, yep, we are exactly as advertised in the industry. We're just a bunch of grease monkeys. And you have to fix that image if you want to ever make money in this business. You can't ask a businessman to spend $1,200 with you when your image is something that you would see in a junkyard. And so that is really the start of the sale. That is really where we got that, is that the sale is made 9 times out of 10 before you ever pitch the customer a price. It's made by the impression. I can tell you more sales are lost by customers walking in a front door and a manager is on the phone, and that manager can't take 1/2 second to look up and just give the customer a nod to let them know that they know that they're there. I tour stores constantly, and that's probably the #1 mistake that you see. And you just want to reach over the counter and slug the guy, because that is the rudest thing you can ever do. It's just that one little, it's kind of like, when you're switching lanes and you're nice enough to let somebody in, they got to give you that little wave and everything's cool. This is the same deal. If they just give you just that finger in there, hey, I'll be right with you, sir, I'll be right with you, man, they're good, they're golden. But if you just look straight ahead and ignore that customer, by the time you hang up the phone, the customer inside has already made an impression of your business. And that's what's so interesting and so great about sales, is there's so many little pieces that you have to be looking at in your business. Is your outside clean? If it is, man, it's one little score. It's going to make it easier. Do you open the front door for the customer? If you do, it just sets you apart. If your front area isn't loaded down with old parts and looking junky, most people say that has nothing to do with sales. It has everything to do with sales. You take somebody home in a shuttle, and that shuttle is something you wouldn't in a million years, ride around in. It's been hauling around parts and junk, and it's filthy. And then or it rattles, or the radio doesn't work. Then you're going to ask that customer to do maintenance with you. See, it's a double standard, and so that's why that's so critical.
Let's go back to an earlier statement what you made about the staffing. Now, I'm sure there's a staffing model you use for your technician base as well, and a staffing model for your manager base. So what is the ideal staffing, and kind of give the guys on the phone here, the gals, maybe the hours you operate so they can see how the staff works within those hours?
Well, in different cities, I do have slightly different hours. In Atlanta, I'm open 7 days a week, and we're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then we have Sunday we're open from 9 to 6. In Denver, we're open at 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then we're open 7 to 7 on Saturday, but we're closed on Sunday. And in Houston, it's 7 to 7 Monday through Saturday. So it's a little bit different. I love the Sunday business personally, but I realize and recognize not everybody wants to do that. And but I think you got to be there for the customer. I have partners that I allow the freedom, and one of the freedoms is Sunday comes up. Most shops are closed on Sunday, and so I elect to let them close on Sunday, and that's fine. But Atlanta outperforms those markets because they're open on Sundays, and when you really look at it, that's what it is. But our staffing in general is basically the same for all of the above, which is a 3-man front. You have a general manager, and you have 2 assistant managers. Now, I don't call anybody a shop, or a service writer, because all my managers write service. And so I don't want a guy who only sells. I want every guy to understand how the P&L works. I want every manager to understand every aspect of the business. So I have 3 managers, not 1 manager and 2 service writers. So just to be clear, it's just a different feeling. I like a minimum of 4 technicians, and which some guys run 2, some run 3, some run 5, but I prefer 4 technicians. We have some stores that will run 5 technicians. And in a brand new store that we opened in Parker 2.5 months ago, we opened with 4 technicians. Store opened doing I think it did $103,000 its opening month, and the second month $118,000. We could have never done that if we would have opened the way a lot of people do, which is 1 or 2 technicians and 1 manager. So it really comes down to, if I was listening to this and I was a shop owner and I'm doing 60s or 40s or whatever it is, I'd be going, well, if I hired another technician, man, my technicians would quit. I mean, I'd have all kinds of problems. I don't have enough business for that many technicians. That's the common thing that I hear. We just purchased, we opened 3 stores this year, 1 in Denver and 2 in Houston. And one of the stores we opened in Houston was, and some of your callers, I don't know who's on here, might know the store, is called Champions Tire and Auto on Louetta. The store is doing 30s. And we knew that it was a good location because we had owned a store down the road when I was with Mobile Car Care, and we knew that was a good area, still a good area. Well, the guy ran with 1 technician, didn't advertise. He'd have 1 or 2 GSs and 1 manager at the front counter. That got him 30s. We opened the store with 4 technicians, 3 managers, and 4 GSs. We did a little over $80,000 our opening month. This month, the store's tracking, I think, 120 or something. I don't want to lie, but it's over 110. And so the difference is the combination. If you're not going to advertise, you're probably better off to stay, with the staff that you are. If you're going to stay with the staff you have, you're better off not to advertise, because those 2 have to work together. And so you really have to decide as an owner, what do I want to do in volume, and how much sales can I get out of each one of my staff? if you think about it, if you got a grand total of 4 or 5 people working in a store, how the hell do you expect to do 100,000 in sales? It's just not possible. And if you get it done, let me tell you, everybody's just beat down to nothing. And then guess what? The next month your sales plunge. So you have to staff. You have to staff for sales, and you have to advertise for sales. And you have to do that almost simultaneously, which is a very tricky thing to do. And I can tell you, offline, Tim can speak more to that. Just so you guys know, Tim was a general manager for me. He was also a sales rep on the other side of the table for me, and he has been trained in this. And so I know the mudlickers out there, the guys that have been part of us for a long time, they already know a lot of this. But if you don't, pick up the phone and talk to Tim, because there's a little bit more to this, when it comes to staffing and how to handle the technician side, where they don't quit the minute you drop a box. And so there's a little more to that, which I'm happy to speak on, but I don't know how much of this we have today. So I'm happy to go back to that.
Well, we just might ask the crowd out there if there are any particular things that you folks would have a question for Greg, or maybe we need to go back and reopen that subject and maybe expand on it a little bit more. Be sure and raise your hand, and I will recognize that hand, and I will click the unmute button, and you can ask Greg a direct question. So please feel free to do that. I don't see anybody's hand up here. So don't be, yeah, we got a hand up. All right. I'm going to unclick you here. So we have John Howes is here out of Dallas, Texas. So, John, what was your question for Greg?
Greg, I have a question about sales per production technician. Do you have any general rule of thumb for that?
Well, I can tell you how I handle it, because I'll tell you what I'm not a big fan of, and then I'll tell you how I do it. I'm very non-traditional in that I never set an amount per bay, because that was the big deal of, hey, how much sales can you do per bay? Well, I've got stores that'll do 180s. That's the 6-bay center, and I've got 12-bay centers that'll barely do 100,000. The area really dictates the sales, not the number of bays. But here's what I do with my technicians, and I'll give you the short story. When I would go around to stores and visit stores, well, if I walked into a store that wasn't that busy, as I'm walking through the shop, all I'd have to do is make eye contact, and I'd see a technician, and they'd go, hey, Greg, you got a second? Hey, Greg, you got a second? And I'd go up to the technicians, and they'd say, hey, man, we're just not busy enough, man. I got to make money. You guys, I'm sure nobody on this call's ever had that happen to you. But what I learned is, wait a minute, then I'd go through the bags, which is what we do. The bags is our daily information that we put together every day. And I'd audit the bags and go, well, why didn't they PMI these cars? Why didn't they run the process? It always was the same thing. When I'd go back and look, I'd go, well, gosh, here came an oil change, and they didn't even write anything up or even look at it. So I had a little shift in my thinking. A good friend of mine in Dallas, in fact, that owns drivers. I'm going to be in Dallas next week to see him. He came up with a great idea in Austin. I've used it ever since, and it's been bulletproof. And that is, instead of a technician coming to me and asking me, or saying, hey, man, I'm not that busy, we set a standard for a technician, which is, look, this is a 6-bay center or an 8-bay center or whatever, and all I can handle is 4 technicians in this shop. So the only way you're going to be able to stay in the shop is if you can write up and flag 40 hours a week. Well, that took all the weight off of us, so that then the technicians all of a sudden knew when I'd walk into a shop, the technician that wasn't flagging 40 hours a week would go hide versus coming up to me and saying, hey, I'm just not making any hours. What's funny, you guys might notice, these great technicians, they always get their hours. I could move a technician to any shop in town. If they're a great technician, if they need to flag 60 hours a week, they flag 60 hours a week. The guys that flag 30 hours a week, you can put them in the top shop in town, he'll flag 30 hours a week. They'll find a reason not to flag any more hours. So we turn that around by saying, hey, you got to flag 40 hours a week to stay working for us. If you can't, then we're going to look for an upgrade. And that keeps them honest, keeps us honest. So hopefully that's a good enough answer.
So, John, do you have something else you want to clarify there, or maybe another question?
Well, no, that's fine. It probably varies a little bit our shop is more European-oriented, and, the standard I set on it is about 45 hours a week for our technicians.
It's interesting. You bring up the European shop. I was in a European shop. My God, it was this week. It feels like it was 2 weeks ago. Aaron's shop in Franklin, Tennessee. I went up there just to check out his operation. That European business is crazy, and so I got an education on European business. You're dead on the 45 hours or more. That is a whole different business. It may not be a business you want to be open all day Saturday and Sunday because of parts issues. And people tend to drop off their cars on Monday and pick them up on Friday. That's my education. So if you have any other questions, but I will tell you, I would definitely put you in touch with somebody that's much more knowledgeable than I am on European cars, because I think that business is fascinating, but I don't know it as well as other people.
Yeah. I'll give you a little idea, Greg. John is in a group, like a 20-group program for, I think John's mainly is Volvo and various other vehicles, but they're in a group together, and they've massaged this business probably to make it probably the best it can be. So John's a very astute business guy. I mean, he's right on top of his name. So you're talking 45 hours a week per technician, John, is kind of the benchmark?
That's kind of the minimum.
Minimum, yeah. Okay.
We start paying an incentive bonus at 50 hours a week. And frequently
where's your shop in Dallas?
In Dallas, intersection of 635 and 35, roughly. North Dallas.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're south of like Plano and all that.
No, we're kind of in between Dallas and DFW Airport, actually.
Okay, okay. I get confused. I know we're 35 and 610, just how they come together. But yeah, that's a neat business. I'm just really learning the European side of it. I think it's fascinating. I mean, I've never seen worse locations in European shops around the country in general, but they're busy.
Yeah,
because
we're at a hole-in-the-wall place.
Yeah, people seek these places out, so it's a fantastic business. Well, it's nice to talk to you.
John, anything else? I'm going to mute you out. If you got another one, John, just be sure and raise your hand, okay?
Great, thanks.
Thanks for asking. All right, I've got another hand up here. George, hang on just a minute, George. I'll get you unmuted here. All right, George Hack, what question might you have for Greg?
Hey, Greg, do you expect an average RO from your stores?
Do I expect an average RO?
Yeah, do you have an average RO that you find to...
Yeah, on average, our stores will run. Now, what we do is we include everything. I don't just take, if you took broke cars, you can run, it depends on how you track it. You can say your RO's $500 a ticket or $700 a ticket. We don't do it that way because then my guys won't put in every ticket. So I look for an RO average of around $200 to $220 a ticket. If you do state inspections and emissions tests, flat tires, everything. We put in rechecks. Anything that comes into that shop has to be counted as an invoice. And the reason why I look at it that way is I want to be able to market to those customers. And I don't ever talk ticket average to my employees because I don't think that's where the problem is. You can chase ticket average and you're going to get ticket average. But what you're going to get is when that customer walks in for an oil change, that manager is going to turn that person away because, oh my God, if they only buy an oil change, that's $20.
Hey, Greg, your voice is going down again.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Yep.
Okay. So I never talk ticket average to my employees, and I don't pay my bills by ticket average. I pay my bills through profits, and the only way I can have profits is to have sales. So I've watched some of our clients over time that have $400 or $500 ticket averages. Their ticket averages have gone down over the last year, but their sales in some cases have doubled. their profits have gone off the charts. But if they were to just chase ticket average, they would have got themselves in trouble. So I would advise you that is not something that I would look at. I would rather look at the individual invoices daily and see where we made mistakes than just a blanket up. We've got to have this amount of ticket average. I don't know that there's a lot of people out in the industry that would tell you the same thing, but with the stores that I have, that's just the way that I operate.
I agree with that. Another question. On your staffing up front, do you try and keep it in a certain percentage, 10, 12, 15, or do you just staff what you feel that?
I never have. Again, and now just bear in mind I have multiple stores, but here is the way that, and I think I've been consistent for years, anybody that knows me, I look for the best talent I can find. Here's what I'll tell you, and this is bared out every time for me. If I hire a guy, and let's say he's $60,000, but he's what I would call a track record person, he has a brilliant career, he's a great operator, and I hire that guy. Another guy I hire that's a young kid, and I'm able to get him for $25,000 a year. Almost 100% of the time, the $25K guy, $25,000 a year guy, he's the one that costs me money. He's the most expensive guy in my shop. Mm-hmm. And so I don't get hung up on the percentage because I get hung up on the talent. If you got superstar talent and I've got to pay you extra, because I've seen this over and over again, people get, well, I'm only going to pay my general manager this much, or I'm only going to do this. Well, you know, if they're not as good as advertised, you can do a thing called termination. But look for the talent. Don't get hung up on the percentages, because what will happen is if somebody's really talented, that percentage is going to go down anyway because they're going to dramatically increase your sales. I've always lost on the cheap guy, and I've always won paying a little bit more for the best talent. It's a great question.
I got another question for you. You might have covered it. I came in about 10 minutes late. Do you do any other advertising other than direct mail, like Advil or newspaper or anything?
I do almost consistently. I do. All of last year, I did only direct mail.
Okay.
This year, I've done direct mail, and I've done one Advo a month. And, you know, to be honest with you, in June, I've canceled my Advo.
Okay.
Now, I wouldn't tell other people to cancel Advo. The reason why I've canceled Advo, we run on average 600 plus cars.
Right.
And so there's a limit to what I can handle in a 6-bay center. And so what I have seen in the summer months is that we're going to see 600 cars just using our direct mail program. Our direct mail program, what I try to do, once I get to 600 cars, is now can I improve the quality of the customers coming through the door. And so I try to keep upping that demographic so I keep getting a better and better customer. And so if I'm already full, the Advo deal will bring in customers, but it's a shotgun approach. So you're going to get low-end customers, high-end customers, middle of the road. More low-end than high-end. I think any mud licker out there that's using both will say you're going to get a higher per-ticket average off of a direct mail piece than an Advo piece.
And
now,
Greg, hang on a minute, George. Greg, back there to that question. Some people might not know what Advo is. Is it, you know, it's kind of a foreign term to a lot of shop owners. So what is Advo?
Advo is a marriage mail piece. If you remember you see it every week. It comes out Tuesday, Wednesday, and it looks like a little bunch of papers, newspapers. And it's just a cheap way to advertise because you can get your ad in there for a lot less money than direct mail. The problem is that a lot of people don't see it. If you're not a coupon shopper, you would never see that unless it just falls out on the floor. Where direct mail, even if you're not a coupon shopper, you're going to see it. You're going to look at it and you're going to throw it away if you're not interested. But at least we know that you've seen it as you were throwing it away. Both of them have their pluses and minuses. You know, direct mail is more expensive, although if you check our price with Mudlick Mail, we are far and away cheaper. In fact, I've shopped to try to find somebody with the same quality of product that can beat our price. So I'm pretty confident to say, check out our prices and compare it to anybody else. Now, and when you add our services on top of that, it's the best value around. But still, you can do Advo cheaper. but you're not going to get the same response necessarily. It is a good return. I've used it whenever I open a new store just to get the car count up. But as you get your car count up, you're going to want to improve that quality of customer. You're not want people driving in that have $50 to their name, and you're going to get a lot of those with Advo. Valpak is the same thing. We always use Advo because it's the best of the worst, meaning marriage mail, I think it's the best. But if you look at Valpak, it's similar. It just comes in a little postage deal. I've used that in the past, and it's okay, but again, you get a lower customer. And the same way with coupons. Oh my gosh, my mind went by. It's another one that comes in the little package that comes to the house, like Valpak. And they're all real similar, but Advo was the best of the three. And if I was to say, hey, who should you use if you want to do marriage mail, I would still strongly support Velasquez, type of product.
How many pieces do you put out a month on your direct mail?
I do between 10 and 15,000 per store. I've been doing direct mail now for years and years and years. Seems like the sweet spot is around 10,000 pieces. I encourage people, hey, if you're not comfortable, this is something that we do that you won't find with other people. We want you to stay with us forever. So we would tell you, hey, if you just want to test it, do 5,000 pieces. Let Tim work with you on identifying the households that I would mail to if I owned your store. You're going to use my direct mail piece that has already been proven to work, and you're going to test it. And what we've seen is the people do 5,000 tend to jump up to 10,000 after a few months. Once they jump to 10,000, they pretty much stay there. I've got people, including Mike Daniels in Dallas, who is probably up there where I'm at, which is probably somewhere between 13 and 15,000. And but you don't have to do that. I mean, it really depends on the area. If you've got only 5,000 people in your market share or in your market area, there's no reason to do 10,000 pieces. We just want you to do what's going to work, because if you do what works, you're going to keep using us forever.
Yeah. One last statement.
Okay, George.
Lisa is a superstar. The lady you have doing your artwork, she's a superstar.
She's outstanding.
Oh
Thank
my gosh,
you for
yes.
that. I appreciate that. Most people don't know Lisa does all of our artwork. Lisa was actually my artist that worked on my stuff when she worked at Velasquez, Advo, and was outstanding. I really appreciate that comment, and she may be on here today.
Well, Lisa, if you're on here, say hello to George.
Hello, George.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you.
How do you feel now, Lisa?
Well, I'm blushing.
Excellent. All right, George, anything else before we go down the road here?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, now I don't see any other hands up here, folks. This is your perfect time to ask Greg some questions. We've got Tim on the phone. We have Lisa. We have Greg Sands. Feel free to ask some questions. If it's not even on the subject we're talking about, I think Greg's going to tell you what he thinks. You might not like what you hear, but he's going to tell you what he thinks. So no more hands are up. We're going to go to the next slide. We've got, Mandy, hang on just a minute. I'll get you unmuted here. Mandy, do you have a question for Greg?
Hi, yeah. What kind of return are you considering a great return on that 5,000 piece mailing, direct mail?
Well, it varies greatly. It depends on the people at the front counter. Mm-hmm. We have, in fact, there's people on this call that could probably answer that better than me. Tim, what do you hear on the people that are doing 5,000 pieces?
Well, if you talk with some of the guys, it will vary a lot based on your market, how much advertising you've done in the past, what kind of competitive situations you're in. But I always tell people in general, and Gary can probably attest to this because he's talked to a lot of guys, on your first drop, you could get anywhere between 9 and 10 responses to as much as 30 responses. And your amount of return, and what Greg mentioned earlier, those responses aren't necessarily your lower dollar responses. You don't need to get as many customers to necessarily make big money. Like I think Gary even made the mentioned earlier about the gentleman who had 9 or 10 cars, but made $9,000. That's very typical, you know. But it's a stepping stone. Greg will attest to this. The more you do each month, and the guys on the phone here can attest. George, who just spoke, has been doing it for a while now, and several others on the phone. Month after month, it gets better and better and better because your return is happening in 2 ways. Those existing customers who maybe didn't initially buy the service or all the service are coming back, as well as Greg mentioned earlier, when people refer business, they refer broke cars, not oil changes. So you're building your internal car count by having folks return who need to complete the service that was recommended, and then you're also getting the referral business. So as Greg mentioned earlier, your marketing dollars. Why do people stop at 10,000? Well, your marketing dollars, you actually don't even have to spend as much, but you'll see your car count will continue to rise. It's those who do it once or twice or 3 times, and they get a good return but not a great return. And a lot of it's because either they didn't execute correctly or they just didn't really commit to the best areas. Are the ones that have good response, but they don't necessarily see the true value. If you talk with a lot of these guys who are on the phone, they'll tell you that over time it just gets better and better. Greg, would that be accurate?
Yeah, and let me touch on something else because I should have said this whenever is it Misty?
Mandy.
Mandy, when Mandy had asked the question, see, it's just a different way that I look at it. See, some people think, hey, you drop 5,000 pieces, we ought to get 500 coupons in. Well, that's not going to happen. I can promise you that. What I have always looked at is my ROI, which is return on investment. So when you send out 5,000 pieces, and some of the guys on here are really good about this, they want to know what the return is. So if you invest $1,250 and you get in that month, you know, it may cost $1,250. I don't know whatever it costs. $1,500, let's say.
$1,550.
Okay, $1,550, and you know you generate an extra $4,000 or $5,000 worth of sales. Let's say that's it. You don't do the 9,000 or 10,000. Was that a good investment? So you'd have to ask yourself, okay, if I invested $1,200 and in 30 days it returned me $4,000 or $5,000, that's a freaking incredible investment. Plus you won those customers over, hopefully, for several years. That's why the advertising builds on itself. Is it with direct mail, there's going to be a lot of customers like myself. I haven't used a coupon in 20 years. But if I see your direct mail piece and I drive by your location, I'm more likely to go in and check you out. I know who you are and I know what you do. And that's what's important. So we have a large number of people that have doubled their sales over the last year. Even people that would say, oh, you know, that were doing 40s or 50s. The Kloster brothers in California, they went from 40s a couple years ago to, I think they're in the 110s to 120s now. They would tell you a lot of it had to do with advertising and some good training. So, you know, look at the return on investment whenever you buy something, not just how many coupons come in the door or what's the ticket average, because that can vary by month by month. We've had some clients out there that get inundated with customers. You know, their percentages are higher, but they don't necessarily do a great job with the customers that walk through the door. They turn away customers. They've turned them away right in front of us as we're out visiting stores. They'll say, no, oh, can you bring the car back, or we're too busy, or well, now that customer that just left, now you're going to send a direct mail to that customer next month. What good is that going to do? You just turned them away. So it's there's a lot more to it than just how many, what should you expect. I think what you'd expect is probably at least a triple investment, a triple return on the investment.
And that's over time. That's not going to happen the first month.
Yeah. Right.
That's like I told the guy the other day, Greg. He says, well, how long do I need to do this direct mail with Medlick? It's forever. But it's a forever game. It's not something that's going to go for a couple of months and you quit. Or if you're going to do that, don't start.
Yeah. Well, and to be upfront, if for some reason you said, you know, I want to do direct mail, but I just don't like these guys, you should just find somebody else and do direct mail with them, and you'll find out we're telling you the truth. Is that, you know, it works. In some cases, it works too good, and you'll get addicted to it. because let me tell you, your guys will call you going, hey, when's that direct mail piece hitting? Because the phones ring when that thing hits.
Yeah.
And so that's why what we try to do is, I'm not a trainer. I'm not in the business of trying to, that's for Gary and people like that to do. I don't have the time to do it, but we have to work really hard on trying to help people understand what they need to say to customers when they walk in the door, because you will get hit with these customers, and if you don't treat them just right, they're just going to walk back out. You never see them. You don't get a return off of those. So really great questions.
Okay. Mandy, anything else?
I wanted to clarify something with the 5-pack oil card, which I think is a fabulous idea. You sell the 5-pack for $89.95, and you're giving away the first oil change for free.
Yes.
But they're paying the $89.95 up front. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then they still have 5 oil changes that they have, and we have a card that we designed for our stores that we use designed for our Mudlick clients, and they can go make their own. They don't have to use mine.
Right.
Do whatever you want to do. But it works really, really, really well. It's a great tool. When you're trying to find ways to increase sales, you take this $20 oil change or whatever you charge, and you can turn it into a $90 ticket. Over the course of a month, you'd be amazed. You do 100 of those, and it changes your bottom line. And we consistently have stores do well over 100 of those. So you can imagine what that can do to your bottom line at about a 90% gross profit.
Mm-hmm.
So
wonderful.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Very good question.
Well, thank you. We've got a question here. Bill, I'm going to unmute you here. It's Bill Broussard. I think you probably already know this gentleman, Greg.
I know Bill. Hey, Bill.
Okay.
Hey, what's happening, Greg?
How's
Greg,
it going,
what do you
man?
do? Good. What are you doing for internal advertising, like to your existing customers, like a retention?
We don't,
piece?
and this is my belief. We can do internal direct mail. I've done just about every type of marketing you can do. Here's what I've found, and it's just much cheaper. If you design your direct mail piece right, your direct mail piece that you do every month is going to hit those customers anyway. So right now the big thing with us is we do emails where we send out emails to customers, but they're really not that effective. I think the world has seen that with spam, if you send out too many of those emails, and some of the clients here has probably experienced that, is that your return, especially if you do it more than once a month, it's going into the delete bin or the spam file like everything else. So we have said, wow, our customers, we know 85% of our customers, this is going across over 30 locations, including Mike's stores in Dallas, 85% of our customers live within 4 miles of our store. If we're touching those customers every month with direct mail, they're getting what we're trying to accomplish, which is to stay in front of those people. So that's the way we handle it. There's some people that do a lot of internal stuff, and what they find is when they do direct mail, some of that internal stuff tends to drop off a little bit, and the internal works great, but why pay 3 times the money to mail out an internal versus an external? So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that answers it.
Hey, Bill, I appreciate you being here. Anything else before we go to somebody else?
That's all I have for now.
Thanks,
all right, Bill. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. I don't have any other hands up, Greg, so why don't we do this? Why don't we put a bow on today and have you take us and wrap this up and really,
let me point out something to everybody, because I wanted to really drive this point home before everybody gets off the phone, because this could be the most important for you guys that have been in business for over 10 years. If you remember, when I got into the business back in the 90s, about 80% of our cars that walked through the door, came through the door, were broke cars. And about 20% of our business was what we'd call, whether they're oil changes or emissions tests or whatever. You know, and if you think back to the 90s, you know, if you guys living in Texas and stuff, remember those big Suburbans? A 1995 Suburban, how long would the brakes last on those vehicles? Maybe 20,000 miles. Today, that same Suburban of 2005, how long will that vehicle go on with those brakes? Probably 80 to 100,000 miles. The market has changed. So what we have seen, if you go back to 95, 80% was broke cars, 20% was oil changes. Today, the rule is flipped. About 30% of our cars are broke cars, and about 70% of our cars coming in are cars coming in for oil changes or, you know, tire rotations or flat tires or emissions or state inspections. And so the key to getting that broke car now comes from the referral off of an oil change. So think about that. And there's this, if you could stay focused on this for a second, think about this. You got 4 technicians. Back in 95, see your 80% that Gary has up on the screen. Well, your 4 technicians were touching those 80% of your cars. And then the other 20% were done by general service people. You might call them a porter or whatever. Today, your technician staff is only touching 30% of your cars. The other 70% of those cars are being touched by people like GS's, general service people. And so you have to be able to get your technicians involved on the oil change side of the business. If you don't, then you're going to see your sales continue to wind down. You're going to continue to have problems. Now, God help you if you're from the old days, 10 years ago. Think about this. This is what we used to hear back years ago, which is, hey, I only work on broke cars. I turn away oil changes. I never advertise except in yellow pages. I'm open only Monday through Friday. I close at 5 o'clock. I only give a 6-month warranty. They're understaffed. They only have 5 or 6 people. That's the company that's going to go out of business. That's the company that will not make it. If you fit in any of those lines, your days are numbered because the market has changed. Vehicles are built better, you know, and it's going to require maintenance items, things that you can get quickly. And so one of the things that we're really focused on right now is more of the flushes that you can do on cars, which is a whole nother sales topic altogether. But this is where, you know, the days of just talking about isolate and upsell, that's for people in the past. You know, most people kind of understand that. The new deals, how do you make money based on the 30-70 rule, which is, wow, how do I make money if I get all these people coming in to try me out on an oil change? How do I turn that into real money? I believe we're the only guys out there that know how to do that. There's a lot of companies that can really teach you how to sell broke cars. And, you know, I'm not in the training business, but in the marketing business, we can teach you how to take a coupon, one of our coupons, and turn it into real dollars. And so hopefully that makes sense to you guys, because I think it's critical to look back and see how cars have changed. You know, in the 90s, we built our business on Ford Tauruses and Suburbans and things like that. Today, cars, I mean, think about this. Back 10 years ago, you used to have cars that the timing belts would break. How many timing belts do you get come in that are broke? Things have just changed. And so you have to get on the bandwagon of understanding how to make money off of the smaller tickets. The big tickets you guys sell already. The 30%, you guys are tearing those up. It's the 70%, turning away the oil changes, that I think where the big win is going to be over the next few years. So anyway, I hope I didn't spend too much time on that.
No, that's perfect. We've got a hand raised here. We want to catch the questions because that's what we're here to do. John, I'm gonna unmute you here. And John Modesti, what question would you have for Greg?
Hello, Gary and Greg. This is Nick Modesti.
Oh, Nick, I'm sorry.
Hello,
yes,
Nick.
I had a question for Greg, since we're talking about oil changes and such, on how, what method are you using to pay your technicians? Are you having a lower skill level technician do those oil changes and paying them less, or how do you do that?
No, we have 2 rotations in our store. And the 2 rotations is, and this isn't 100% foolproof. When you get busier, you do have to have general service people jump in and help. It's like anything else. But we try to get most of our oil changes touched by the technician. We pay them $1.2. So they get 0.2 to do the oil change, but they have to do the oil change. If they don't do the oil change, they don't get it. It's never really worked for me to have a general service person do the oil change and then the technician supposedly looks over the vehicle. I just haven't been able to accomplish that. Maybe at 1 or 2 locations you might can accomplish that. If you can, that's great. But for me, my techs do oil changes. They have to. And it also cuts down on the number of issues that you have with, think about this. You let an $8 an hour person do an oil change, and he doesn't tighten up the oil filter, or he cross-threads it, or he cross-threads the little plug on the bottom. A technician doesn't do that. One of the biggest things, and I'll tell you guys on here today, that our research, I shouldn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you, is that moving forward in June and July, instead of the 10-10-10 rule, we're going to 15 and 15. And the reason for that on the oil change is that we're going away from tire rotations. And we're going to be, it's almost a total shift from what I've taught for 18 years, but the market has changed. If you remember the story that I just gave you on the Suburban, well, what we're seeing is that today, because of the type of wheels that people have and the locking wheels and the brake pads that last a lot longer, the bigger rotors, that we're not seeing the value versus risk part of that. And one of the issues that we're seeing with timing, getting that job done in 30 to 40 minutes, is that the tire rotation is just taking us entirely too long. So starting in June and July, we're phasing out the tire rotation as part of any coupon offer that we offer. And that's a major shift for us. It's worked great, but as I've been touring stores, I've toured, I'm going to Dallas next week to tour 11 stores, and so I will have been in about 35 stores in 2 weeks. And it's consistently a problem out there with the tire rotation. So that's just food for thought that you guys, I haven't shared that with anyone outside of our own company, but I think that's something you guys should know.
Okay, good. Well, Nick, anything else there, buddy?
Yeah, I was also going to ask, do you combine the oil change with the PMI inspection?
We do. When you mean combine it, do you mean do we do it at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, we do the 10-10-10 rule. That's what we were talking about earlier, if you remember.
I think I missed that part of it.
Okay. Well, the 10-10-10 rule is we do the 21-point inspection or 19-point inspection, whatever you have. We do that part first. Then we do the tire rotation and then the actual oil change. And that's how we explain that to the customer. If you want to offline, Tim can go through that with you again if you call him. That way everyone doesn't have to go through that again. But I think it's worth the call.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, for the folks on the phone here that are Mudlick clients, Tim and I started a webinar that we do 36 Tuesdays a year at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we talk about all of these things that you ought to do after the phone starts ringing from your mail-outs and things that you're doing and how you can handle the systems in the process. You heard Greg talking about it, but be sure and plug in at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, through our webinar base, and if you're doing Mudlick Mail, you are invited to that free of charge. That's part of our service, and Tim and I want to make sure that we're not only helping you bring cars in, we want to make every car count. That's the process we want to make, and want to make sure that everybody understands how to do that. So, Greg, I want to thank you personally for being here today. I want to thank you personally for helping many shop owners throughout your years of being in this business, and I'm glad you're still not working for Fridays or either the other company you worked for.
Well,
glad you're in the business with us here.
I'm thankful for being here, and I appreciate all you Mudlickers out there that's on the phone today. We really appreciate your business.
Now, one more thing before we go, Greg. In our library, this entire audio video, we captured this today. It will be uploaded into our library, And you can go there and download it, listen to it again, play it for your people, learn from it. That's what we do this for, because we want people to understand how to be successful. And Greg, I thank you for sharing part of your success story with us, and hopefully everybody benefited from you being here.
Well, I really hope so. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Gary.
You're mighty welcome. Y'all have a great day. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.